So luckily, I did know a little bit and had met him prior to this, a guy by the name of Smokey Yunick, who was big at that time with Pontiac in the NASCAR world. Hey, this is Arnie, the farmer Beswick, coming from the Throttlestop at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Well, the first national event that I went to was the NHRA national event, their first one that they had ever done, which was held at Great Bend, Kansas, at the Great Bend drag strip there. And I drove my car down there. We didn't have such things as trailers in those days, tow trucks and all that stuff. I just drove my vehicle there and entered into the class that they put me in. At that particular time, I was driving a 1964 Oldsmobile. Excuse me, 1954 Oldsmobile, because this event, I believe, was 1955, the first national NHRA event ever. So I entered the class they put me in, and there was quite a number of cars in that class. And most of the cars at that particular event was street-driven cars, and very few dragsters and gassers and those type of things. It was more street cars, because that was before drag racing really got off the ground in a big way. And I just thought I'd probably last a round or two at best before somebody would beat me. But it turned out that I managed to do my thing and get off the line before my competition, and ended up winning that first ever NHRA event at Great Bend, Kansas. A few years later, when I once got into the Pontiac thing, the first NHRA NASCAR Winter Nationals was held at Daytona Beach, Florida. This event was run for a week. It started, I believe, on a Saturday night and went through Sunday all the way through the following Saturday night. And each night that you won or runner-up or whatever, you got so many points. Well, my 60 Pontiac ended up being the overall winner throughout the week. And I think my final run on Saturday, which was for the championship, because he had a few points of winning also, but it also meant if he did beat me, that was a one and only race for the finals. And run against Harold Ramsey for the finals and ended up beating him. So I did win the first NHRA Winter National events, which was held at Daytona Beach. Wally Parks, seeing what kind of a crowd they had at Daytona for that race, and he decided for 61 and on up, we can't be giving half of our gate to NASCAR, we're going to start our own race. So in 1961, NASCAR had their race at Daytona. NHRA had their race out in the Los Angeles area.
Time trials at the 1961 Winter Nationals began early on the first day of the big three-day meet. Throughout the day, entries in every class continued to check in at the Pomona Drag Strip in Pomona, California, for the first Winter Nationals to be held on the West Coast.
So I went down there again in 61, this time with my 61 Pontiac, and again ended up winning the overall event. The final run, unfortunately, one of the piston rings and piston broke, so it started putting out smoke like you couldn't believe. Well, I managed to drive it back to the winner's circle, but of course I also drove that car to Daytona, pulling a trailer like I did my 60, and I had a couple buddies riding with me. but there was no way I was going to be able to drive that home with that broken piston. So luckily, I did know a little bit and had met him prior to this, a guy by the name of Smokey Yunick, who was big at that time with Pontiac in the NASCAR world. Well, he said, I don't have time to do any of that right now because of the NASCAR race this week, and I have commitments with several of the NASCAR people driving Pontiacs. He said, but I can offer you a motor at a decent price that you could go ahead and put in yourself if you want to do it that way. Well, that is what I did. I bought a motor from him, short block I should say, and put that in my 61 Pontiac. Then we ended up driving it home. That was quite an event for me, and I continued to run the Daytona Winter Nationals for several years after that. And then went down there with my 63 Le Mans Coupe and my 63 Catalina Swiss cheese car in 1963. And luckily, the cars run good enough. Pontiacs, I don't want to give myself a lot of credit, even though I did win. Pontiacs, it really was ahead of the game in competition. They had the motors that had power. They put the right gears in the rear end, transmissions, and all you needed to do was know how to drive them and put the right tire on. We didn't have special race tires in those days like they do today. So in '63, this coupe won the overall show for the Superstock, factory Superstock class, and my 63 Catalina Swiss cheese car, it was a class or two lower. It won that particular class as well. So my cars got known pretty well in that era. '64 again, I went to Daytona. This time I had the 63 wagon, 63 coupe, and my 63 Catalina. Crazy as it might sound, I won with all three cars in the class that they were put in. And I continued to run those NASCAR races as the years went by until they finally decided the track they was using was not up to the standards of the insurance company, and there wasn't no more tracks in that area that would meet the approval of the insurance people. So about 10 years later, after they had been doing those winter national events, they finally had to take them out of the picture and not run them anymore, which upset a lot of people, including me.